No, it's just like you usually sit there.
Right. It's okay. And I usually stand over here. You know. Right. So, I don't know.
I saw Joel yesterday.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the Mazel Tov wishes. It was Sunday night, and it was Baruch Hashem. It was a wonderful, wonderful event. Before I forget, Lili Nishmat Avigdor Chayavram Ben Meir Tzivos Rachalea, the Shavash David Aliyah. The wedding, which was up in Beit Shan, it was, yes, I'm the father of the Kala, so I'm biased. But it really was Baruch Hashem, a wonderful event. We were happy with almost every one of our guests that came, but some, could have stayed home.
I was tired. That's a long walk.
Long walk. Next time, drive. Joel's here. Hello, Joel.
You waited?
We did, yeah. So in conclusion, thank you very much. It's interesting that Dafka, this week's parasha, we see this a pasuk that we learn a halacha from that says that after Shimon and Levi go and give a brit to the people in Shechem, the people of Shechem, so it says Vayi bayom hashlishi b'otam koavim. It was on the third day when they were in pain. We learn from that that I know that our Moel's wife is on the line right now, so I'm sure she knows this as well, that it's a requirement of the Moel to check the baby on the third day because it's most painful. It's not just after a brit, but it's after any surgery, everything. It's usually they have medically shown that on the third day it tends to be the more intense day. Today's the third lahavdil. Today's the third day since the wedding, and it's hitting. I'm tired. What can I say? Baruch Hashem. So Baruch Hashem. We're going to continue now on page 33, and I think it's on the bottom of the page where it starts with the words "V'hamafsida shelishi." We'd mentioned that there was three things that prevent a person from being careful and staying away from mitzvot lo ta'aseh, the thou shalt nots. The third one he's going to talk about has to do with our environment, whom we choose to surround ourselves with whose company we choose to take, to be associated with. Sometimes we don't have a choice. Most often we do. And we're going to see a little sentence or two from Rav Aviner along the way that will also point this out. Let's take a look. It says, the third thing that causes us to detract from our ability to be vigilant in not doing mitzvot lo ta'aseh is our society, the people we are with. Dahainu, surrounding ourselves, God forbid, with fools and sinners. Friends of fools will be broken. Now I want to make just one comment parenthetically. The word ra, resh ayin, which means bad or evil, has many meanings actually. The Gemara talks about many times, the Mishnah talks about kota ra'ua, means a broken wall or a wall that's collapsing. And actually, Rhonda, would you happen to have a piece of paper, plain piece of paper, that you don't mind getting torn up? Okay. Yeah, sure, that's fine, if you don't mind. Let's pull one out of here if it's okay. Take one from the middle so it doesn't mess up the whole book. All right. Okay. There you go. Thank you very much. I need a little demonstration. Now, this is a parenthetical comment. You feel free to use this at a Sheva Brachot or whatever. The word ra. So we also know that the word re'a, re'im, right, means friends. Like samach to samach re'im ha'ahuvim. One of the Sheva Brachot is that the dear friends should be joy, share their joy together. So what's the connection between ra, resh ayin, and re'im, friends? So I told you that one of the ideas of resh ayin is also something that's broken apart. So if you take a look, I'm gonna just tear this piece of paper and now, on all planet Earth, in the entire universe, there is absolutely only one possibility of this broken piece of paper fitting connected perfectly with another broken piece of paper. Correct? Only this. I could tear another piece that'll be similar, but it won't have the same DNA, same thread, same whatever you call it inside the paper, and they'll match together. So they're called re'im ahuvim because they're two broken pieces of or separated pieces of neshama that come together as one unit. So that's so the word ra doesn't just mean evil, God forbid. It has many other shorashim or other meanings as well. Continuing, we see many times. Even when a person knows absolutely 100% sure there are things they're not allowed to do, he'll literally means loosen from it. Means he'll kind of start getting a little bit less careful with these things. Or he'll go against certain mitzvot. Why? So his friends don't make fun of him, or to kind of look cool, to be like to join the group. So, a couple of examples. These aren't made up. This is one example. This is not made up. I've heard this, unfortunately, a few times. A group of teens that are, let's say, 16, 17, they had just eaten something. Maybe they washed, I don't know. It's time to bench. One of the kids says, okay, let's bench. The guy says, why? It's not Shabbat. I've heard that more than once. Or it's time for mincha. Mincha. Okay, I've heard this. It hurts. It hurts to hear it. Now, what did that happen? That one boy who wanted to bench, boy wanted to go to mincha, kind of kept it like, what was going to go on there? Sometimes they did it on their own. Sometimes they just, okay, no one else is doing it. Why am I going to look like the super frum kid? Okay. This is what Shlomo warns us and says, V'im shonim al titarev, with those who want to alter the word of Hashem, don't get involved. Maybe someone will say, wait a minute, come on. It says very clearly, you should always be like on par, like try to get along with everybody, to mix with everybody. You say to him, when does that apply? Humans that want to do the human actions, but not humans who want to do the actions of animals. What does that mean? To not do the action of an animal. So the word animal in Hebrew, behema, is also one of the things that you read in places. It says is behema is ba ma. In it, what is there? What does that mean? When an animal is born, they are, except for growing bigger, that's it. They don't become more intellectual. They don't become more savvy. They don't become more ability to do things. It just grows. They can't change their lives. They can't. Human beings can. What does an animal have? The animal does what an animal does. It eats, it sleeps, it does whatever it wants to do and tries not to get killed or eaten. That's pretty much the animal kingdom. So when a person decides they're going to eat and drink and sleep and do whatever the heck they want and just not get killed along the way, that's Maaseh Behema. Okay, so even though it says you should try to be as social as possible, involved with your community, but that's what it's talking about, people who are acting on the straight and narrow. Furthermore, Shlomo says in Mishlei, draw yourself away from fools. I really do. This is the very first parak, which I'm sure is familiar to many of you. I'm quoting the whole thing because we're going to see in a minute why it's important to know that first pasuk. We'll see, but it means basically right now we've just quoted the first half, which is happy is the one who has not sat. No, of course, my mind just went blank. I have it right here in front of me. Hold on. Oh, we'll get to it. It says, the Gemara in Avodah Zarah says, why does it use three different expressions in that first pasuk? It says halach, amad, and yashav. Walk, stand, and sit. Im halach, if he walks in the ways of the evil people, sofo la'amod, eventually he'll stand with them. Im amad, if he stands with them, sofo le'shev, eventually he will sit with them. Ashrei ha'isha shalach b'atzat rishayim, v'derech hatayim lo amad. Okay, I'm not remembering the pasuk. Ve'omer lo yashati meteshav saneti kal mereim. Also, it says David Amelech says, "I never sat with false people, false men, and also saneti kal mereim. I have hated the society of the wicked." Ein lo la'adam el lehitaher unakot atzmo. A person has to purify himself and cleanse himself. Limnoa raglav midakeh hamon hashkuim b'avlei hazman, and try to prevent yourself from getting involved in any way, shape, or form with people who are absolutely mired in the Gashmi world. Now, what does it mean hevlei zman? What's hevel? It also means breath, right? But it also means vanity. Havel havalim amar kohelet, right? He says everything is vanity. Hevel is also like foolishness. So those people who just everything about them is just they want to do what they want to do. Now, what does that mean, hevlei zman? How is that the antithesis of living a religious life? So I'll show you. I've given a shir. I'm not going to do it now. It's about an hour long. That starts at what's called alota shachar, which is dawn, 72 minutes for sunrise, and ends at chatzot halayla, which is not midnight, but it's 12 hours after the middle of the day, of midday, chatzot hayom. There are 13 checkpoints regarding time during the day. With alot hashachar, you have Mishiyakir, Hanetzach Hama, the end of time for Shema, the end of time of davening. As you go through the day, the earliest, what's Chatzot Hayom, what's the earliest time you can daven Mincha, what's Plaga Mincha, what is it after, anyways, to begin with, et cetera, et cetera. There's 13 checkpoints of time during the day. So a person who couldn't care less about the times of the day is missing the boat, right? Because it's not only that they're being mevatel mitzvot, whether it's putting on tefillin or any other thing, or tefillah, but also time doesn't mean anything to them, in that Hashem has given us this ability to embrace time and to do something with it and make it count. There's almost no time. By the way, here's a good brain teaser. I don't know if that's the right word, but is there any time of day you can't daven? What? I'm curious if anyone has an idea. Was there any time of day? If you're on mute, by the way, please feel free to take yourself off of mute to answer. But is there any time of day when you cannot daven? Which is when? I'm saying time of day, not location. After like alot or before alot shachar? If it's before alot shachar, which is done, you have a marav. Right. If you wake up at 4 in the morning, it's and alot is 4:15. You realize, oh, I didn't daven marav. You can daven marav.
You're not allowed to say Shema anymore.
Well, yeah, that's right. It's not that you're not allowed to. If you say Shema, let's say the latest time you can say Shema today, I'm going to guess, say 9:32, Bonagid. So you can still say it, but you don't get the mitzvah of saying it on time. You get a mitzvah of saying it, but not the mitzvah of saying it on time. It's like saying belated happy birthday. I said happy birthday, but it wasn't on time. So is there times? The answer is there is approximately half an hour window where there's nothing you can daven. It's too late for shacharit, it's too early for mincha, and it's not marav time. So that time is what is called chatzot hayom, the halfway point between sunrise and sunset, for half an hour. That half an hour, you can't daven mincha, it's too early. You can't daven shacharit, it's too late. Just that half an hour. And it's approximately half an hour, which is part of that whole shiur. It's not necessarily half an hour. So maybe one day I'll give that shiur. But it ties into this now, because notice the words he's saying, not just people who are tipshim, not just people who are chotim, but also that they are shkuim, they're mired, they're stuck in hevlei hazman. Yashiv raglav el chatzrot Hashem el mishkenotav, and then you should return your feet, you should go back to the Beit Midrash, go back to the shul. Who should David atzmo mesayim ve'omer, this is what David himself says, el chatz b'nikayon kapai v'savavat mizbachacha. Tov, very nice. I want to read to you one sentence from Aviner. I sent it to myself. Here it is. Okay. I should make it brighter so I can actually see it. He says like this. He's quoting Rav Dessler, Rav Liel Dessler, modern day, well, he's no longer alive. He died in the early mid-1900s, but he was a modern day part of the Musar movement in general. Okay, fine, whatever. He says in Michtav Me'Eliyahu, Ani mitlabet. He says about a person himself, I'm debating. Lignov or lo lignov? Should I steal something or not? Nichnasta lechaburat ganavim. You decided to join a group of ganavim. Kvar bacharta lignov. It's not like you're deciding, should I steal or not? As soon as you enter into that world, you've been sucked into it, and that's what you're going to do. In general terms, you've chosen. Instead, you went into yeshiva. By doing that, you made many, many decisions with that one action. The environment of the yeshiva will protect you. Society, those people who surround you, have a tremendous power, both for the good and for the bad. So what he's saying, this is Rabbi Michtav Eliyahu Dessler Zatzal, and Ramchal is telling us the same idea, that a person who is, let's say, easily influenced, especially, when you make a choice with whom you're going to associate, and those people are negative, in very general terms, that's your choice already, because you're going to get influenced. And by the way, even a person who's very strong in their convictions, when they decide to choose something that's not very good, it also has an hashpa'ah. I will tell you, look, you know me well enough to know that I'm the first one to say that that every single male, we'll come to females in a minute, but every single male who is of able body and has no physical impediment should at one way or another serve this country, especially in the army. I mean, there's no, I mean, I don't care what they wear on their head, nothing on their head of kipasuga or black hat. They should be in the army, nikuda. There's no reason not to. Women, I believe, to a degree, my own daughter did, serve in the army in certain circumstances, or at least do Sherut Lumi. And guys who can't serve in the army should be doing Sherut Lumi. They should be serving their country, not just sponging off the country. And a select few shouldn't be doing either. But there's a very strong argument for some people for wanting their children to go into the army, not because, God forbid, they could get injured or anything worse, but because of the hashpa'ah, because of the influence that that will sway over them in the army. And I can fully understand that. I've had many discussions, but I actually had a discussion with somebody who is only 16 or 17. Last couple of weeks, he's the first kid that ever said to me, I'm really looking forward to going to the army, but I really have to try now to start building up that I don't get influenced wrong in the army. I said, you're the only kid that's ever said that to me. I said, that's the most adult thing I can imagine you could say, because he doesn't want to not be frum. He doesn't want to not be religious. Okay, goodbye. So mashma, that depending on the unit you end up, depending on the group you surround yourself with, if you go to Netzach Yehuda, you have a better chance. You decide to go, I've had people, I've had relatives, I've had friends who've been the only religious person in their unit. And it hasn't, but it sometimes happens, as does this one boy who contacts me a lot with questions. He becomes the rabbi of the group. They ask him all the questions that they didn't even know about. What's this business about, whatever it might be. So he messaged me, he says, I don't have enough background on religious, but I never learned it. So I sent him an answer. So that's pretty cool also, keep that kesher. But it's so true that that's why when people say to you, and I'm sure they have over the years, not so much necessarily now, but years ago, whether it's recently or many years ago, you chose to make Aliyah. How did you choose Ma'ale Aduim? How did you choose Yerushalayim? How did you choose Yerucham? People make choices based on certain things. I always have my canned answer. One of which is, what still is I want to be surrounded by the type of Jew that lives in Mitzpenevo. I wanted that. Could I live in a mixed community? I could live in a mixed community. I lived in a Jewish, non-Jewish community my whole life until I came. So that would have been fine too. But I wanted a certain environment. I wanted a certain avirah. I've seen changes, some good and some not so great over the years, but that's okay. But bigadol, it's what we want. What would be best for us when we move somewhere, when we switch to a different community, when we find, whether you're in Chutz or in Israel, you still want to surround yourself with good people, with people who could be a positive influence. It says when a person wants to do tshuva, or a person wants to do an avera, they can't help themselves. It's just that's the way they're going to be. It says they should move to a community where no one knows them and just do it there. It doesn't mean you have the permission to do it, but it means you shouldn't try to be the bad influence on the other people as well. Just go, no one knows you. Just do it. You want to do X, go do it. Just don't do it in your own backyard. Again, I'm not saying don't take this out of context. Doesn't mean I'm saying go ahead and do sins in other neighborhoods. That's not what I'm saying. Next paragraph. What happens? Tachlis. You're about to do something, and someone a mitzvah, or you're staying away from an avera. I don't want to. I had this recently. Someone was saying something to me, and it was absolute lashon hara. And I started to change the subject. How about those Cubs? My standard line. I said, yeah, lashon hara. I know. So like making light of it, but I didn't let it get to me. I moved on, right? So if you happen to be in a situation where people make fun of you, lo yashiti bo ela lagahu. Don't pay attention to that derision. Adrabah. It's an Aramaic word which means just the opposite. Yil'ag al mal'iga vivazem. Make fun of them. Now, doesn't mean like you're supposed to. You also have to be careful how you respond to somebody like that, because sometimes it makes things much worse for that individual and for you. You don't start standing up in the middle of a dining room at a hotel when someone wants to speak to you with lashon hara and say, "Hey, look at this guy. He couldn't care less about lashon hara." No, I heard a funny story the other day. Someone went to was selling books. Oh, it says it's Chavetz Chaim. It wasn't. Was going around selling his book on lashon hara, on shmirat lashon, and he goes to an apartment building, and the guy says, "Look, I'm actually very makpid, very careful. I don't need your book, but go upstairs. Boy, do they need it. You got to hear what they do." Now he uses would you care if your friends think something strange about you? So make fun of you. You want to lose your neshama because someone makes fun of you? You're not losing your neshama for one action, generally, right? So what does that mean? It eats away at our neshama when we do something wrong. So every little bit. So you're taking that chance. I don't want them to make fun of me, so I won't bench. I don't want them to make fun of me, so I won't go to mincha. I won't whatever the fill in the blank. As similarly it says in Pirkei Avot, you should be swift like a deer, and then the other animals and antelope playing and all that stuff to go do the will of God. What does that mean? It's a famous pasuk. Only I say it's famous because I know it. That's the only reason it's famous. He says, "I will speak of your statutes again with kings, and I won't be embarrassed." What does that mean? When you see it, you picture David HaMelech sitting with kings and heads of state, that the majority of their discussions would be about stately matters and big important things. And David also was a king. It would maybe seem to be kind of embarrassing in when he would be with them. That he would talk about Torah and how to better your life. Instead of speaking about these important, lofty, stately matters, he couldn't care less. He wasn't seduced by the hevel of this, because he already achieved the truth. He says, I will speak even in presence of kings about you, your statutes, your mitzvot, your Torah, and I will not be embarrassed. I also will make my face like flint, and I will know, and I will not be embarrassed. So, in this particular chapter, he was trying to help us understand that not only do we need to know the important information of how to not do a mitzvah lo taseh and to stay away from it, but we also have to be aware of impediments, things that prevent us from that goal. There isn't a person sitting here or listening to my voice or will hear my voice later on YouTube that doesn't know there are things we can't do and there are things we have to do. We know it. And we also know that we try to do our best, I hope, to not mess up. And things get in the way. And he tells us there are these three basic ideas. Here's what they are. And why does he tell us? Because he could have just said very simply, just do your best. Try to not do the bad things based on what I've told you. But he tells us these things so we have a level of awareness. What this book focuses on tremendously is awareness, is our being muda'im, being aware of not just what we can and can't do, because that's aleph beis. I mean, that's basic. We know that already in most cases. But how we take it to the next level and what we need to be aware of. Now, the first chapter 2, 3, 4, 5 all dealt with what's called zvizut, which we said was either watchfulness, which is a weird translation, but better is vigilance, being vigilant against doing the wrong thing. The other side of the coin is doing the right thing. Sur meira va'aseh tov. But David HaMelech says in Perek Lamed Tehillim, we should veer away from evil and do good. Why not just say sur meira? Just say stay away from evil. I mean, that's already a great thing, correct? So again, with a piece of paper, Rambam tells us something very interesting. And you'll see where I'm going with this. Hold it up here. He doesn't say it exactly like this, but somewhat like this. If you take a piece of paper, let me actually preface this. Why is it you find sometimes a person, you see this a lot in the Baal Tshuva movement today, that a person who becomes a Baal Tshuva often early on goes to an extreme. It happens. Some eventually find a middle ground, right? So what does the Rambam say? That it's not that a person who's all the way at one end, extreme of not doing so great. Now you want to try and straighten that out. What happens? It's go right back where you were. And you sometimes have to go overboard a little bit, and then this way you come back to the center, and the paper will stay. So sometimes what happens is the person who's a Baal Tshuva tries to overcompensate. And by the way, it could be in anything, not just in religion. We talk about sometimes a person decides they want to stop drinking. Or that's not a good example. It's yes or no. They want to lose weight. Okay, so I decide, for example, I want to lose more weight. I say now instead of downing 15 croissants at a time, God forbid, okay, instead I'm going to eat just chia seeds and flax seeds. Shout out to my wife, my beautiful dear wife, Baruch Hashem. So like the other extreme. Look, what about normal food? Not that chia seeds aren't. A little humor in life. So you go to different extremes. So why is Sur Meira not enough? Because just staying away from doing the wrong things. See, think about it. If you stay in bed all day, you actually are accomplishing a lot. Hey, that's cool, isn't it? Right? If you stay alone, you're not on your phone, and you don't talk to anybody, and you don't get out of bed, you really do accomplish a lot. You're not doing Avodah Zarah. You're not speaking Lashon Hara, right? There's so many things you're not doing, right? You're not eating treif. Okay, that's nice. I have an expression I think I'd like to write about one day. There is many different adjectives that are used for orthodoxy nowadays. One of which is how did it go? What's the word? I couldn't remember it, but basically, whatever. Some newer kind of expressions used about orthodoxy. I want to write an article, and I'm serious, called passive orthodoxy. What does it mean? What do I mean by passive orthodoxy? Person doesn't break Shabbat. Okay. The person doesn't speak Lashon Hara, but they also don't do anything. They don't put on tefillin, they don't daven, they don't bench, they don't, like the things that the masiyot, the actions that you're supposed to take, they don't. They don't do the negative stuff, but they don't do the positive stuff. They don't try to do anything about it. So passively, if you ask that person, are you religious? Are you Orthodox? They would say, yeah, I don't. And usually come to the first Kanei Midah is Shabbat. I keep Shabbat. Of course, I don't break Shabbat. There's no Torah in the house. There's no learning. There's like nothing. That's passive orthodoxy, I think, because you're not doing anything, but at the same time, can you call yourself Orthodox? You don't put on tefillin, you don't do certain mitzvot. Okay, but in any case, Sur Meira is not enough. Staying away from evil is not enough. You have to do the aseh tov. You have to do the positive as well. Imagine, again, I years ago, I thought I wanted to write a perush on Mesilat Yesharim, not a perush, but a commentary, probably better, even though it mean the same thing. A running commentary of using Mesilat Yesharim for zugiyut, for relationships, to understand those, take the concepts and then place them on marriage relationships, or parent-child, or sibling relationship. For example, you have a husband and wife. He doesn't hurt her feelings, and she doesn't hurt his feelings. That's good. That's nice. They don't talk ill about each other, to anybody else. Very nice. But is there any positive there? Is there any Like, wow, you're a wonderful spouse, you're a great husband, you're great. Where's the asay tov? So there's the sumeira. They don't do bad to each other. They exist together. They spend time together. They eat together. They watch TV together, whatever it might be. But where's the asay tov? So we're seeing from here, first, of course, from David HaMelech, sumeira and asay tov are two sides of the same coin. They go hand in hand. You can't do just one of those. You can't do asay tov without sumeira. Person, that, by the way, is very common. Where they're shuckling in the davening and whatever they're doing, they're giving their names on buildings for millions of dollars in tzedakah, and at the same time, whatever else they might be doing is to use your imagination, whether it's embezzling or anything else. Unfortunately, it happens. As I say in Swedish, "Meisim b'chol yom." Happens all the time. So let's take a look at this. Begin the next parak, parak vav. Now we're going to talk about zvizut. I'm curious in English, how does it translate zvizut? Alacrity. Anybody else? Anything different? Zeal. Okay. Because the reason I ask is that there's really those are translations, but it doesn't mean the same thing. It doesn't. Because someone who's zariz, his alacrity, is zealous. There's something not there in the English translation. Okay. Achar zehirut yavo hazvizut. After zehirut, the idea of being careful not to do the wrong thing, comes the idea of zvizut, and I'm just going to leave it untranslated. What do you have? What do you have there?
Oh, no, he says the same thing.
Does he really?
All of these
Yeah.
things don't really all included.
Where he says that in the commentary there? In the comment there?
Yeah.
Cool. Which one is this?
Of course.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, cool. So I was machavim to Rabbi Dr. Torsky, Alev Shalom. Oh, wow. Rabbi Abram J. Alev Shalom. He has said many times, I heard him speak on personally once or twice. He said, oh, people say I wrote 55, 60 books. I didn't. I wrote one book 60 different ways, right? Yeah. He changed for the good. He changed a lot of people's lives in many different areas, especially in the addictions area, especially. And abuse, right? He brought these topics out and uncovered and started to take the dust from under the carpet. The people were sweeping under the carpet. Still a horrible problem in many situations, many circles. So now we come to zvizut. Ki hazihirut yilsovev al halotase, vazvizut al haaseh. It's zihirut is the first half of the book we started in the first half. The first sections we did had to do with lotase, the thou shalt not, and now zvizut is about aseh. V'hainu, sumerav aseh tov, go away from evil and do good. V'nyano shal zvizut mevoar, shehu ha'aktama limtzo ula'ashlamat inyanam. Okay, let me explain to you what this phrase means in a free translation. If I say I am zariz, I'm just going to say it in English, zealous, with a mitzvah, I would assume most people would think that means I do the mitzvah itself like as best as possible. Okay, which is a legitimate perspective, but it's much more than that. Much more. Look at the word he uses, hahakdama la mitzvot. There's two things. The introduction, we'll see what that means, and then the completion of that actual mitzvah. There are tasks in our lives, put aside for a minute mitzvot, there are tasks in our lives that we have to do, some daily, some weekly, some monthly, some annually, some we look forward to doing, and some we do out of a sense of obligation. What's the difference this is a rhetorical question, what's the difference in how you feel about the tasks that are obligations versus the tasks that are enjoyable and you look forward to, right? So I'll give you a little tiny Dvar Torah that sounds like it's absolutely not connected, but I think it is. And if not, tough luck. You'll get a Dvar Torah. 2 weeks ago, Parasha, Rivka says to her son Yaakov, go to Lavan and stay there yamim achadim, right? Until your brother it calms down. Stay there for a period of time. And he goes, fine. So Yaakov goes, and we see in last week's parasha that he marries Rachel, marries Leah, and Bilhah and Zilpah, and they have all the Shiv Tekah, almost all of them are born, and Shalom Yisrael, right? But there's a very strange statement that's made that seems counterintuitive, which I'm sure many of you know, that when Yaakov Avinu is told by his future father-in-law that he has to work for 7 years for his wife, he says, "Vayu ve'einav ki yamim achadim." It seemed like to him like just a few days. It's counterintuitive. If I love her, I want it, it's going to seem like an eternity. So the one quick answer is that it meant that it was the Yamim Achadim that his mother was telling him that, okay, this must be the time now, that this is the time, the switch where things are going to get good and I'm going to be able to go back. But I heard a different explanation. For all of you who have had relatives come to visit you here, either from the United States or anywhere else, or even from within Israel, but you don't get the chance to see very often. Those cats are very happy. Let's take a person coming from the United States coming here to visit. They haven't been here in years. And they're going to be coming to you tomorrow. Now, you've known for 6 months that relative is coming. You don't go every day, yes, 6 months, yes, 5 months in 29 days, 5 months in 28 days. Generally, you may have a little countdown sheet even because you're excited, but you don't get that, oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. But what about the day you wake up? And that day they're going to be landing and you checked and they're on time and you can't wait to get to the airport and pick them up. There's a different feeling, right? It's like those last few minutes or last few hours before the anticipated arrival. Yaakov Avinu, for 7 years, felt the Yamim Achadim, like those last few days of the arrival of the big day. It was this intense, passionate love that he had for Rachel that kept him sustained this whole time. So it wasn't just the action of he's going to marry her and then start a family, but the anticipation and everything leading up to it was also very important. I can go and decide, I'm kind of giving you a little bit of a background here now of the parrot, but I can go Erev Sukkot and rush to some intersection where some kid is selling lulav and etrog out of the back of his car. You can pick up his, okay, it looks like fine. Looks good. Looks pretty cool. Okay, it's green. I'll take that. And boom, run home with it. Okay. Or it's 30 days before, it's going to even right after Yom Kippur, before Yom Kippur, I take out the Shulchan Aruch, read a little bit, remind myself, this is so good. Oh, I forgot about this, and have the ukats, and have this, and that, have blitot, and have the bombs. Very good. Oh, this is great. Tomorrow I'm going to go buy a lulav and etrog. It's the preparation, the feeling of what you want to do. The similar idea of giving a gift. Who's got a birthday coming up soon? Anybody? When's yours? Oh, you both do. When's yours? What date? Was. That's okay. On the Cheshvan. Okay, and yours? December 16th. Okay, so yours is coming up. Okay.
20th of November.
What's that?
Mine's coming up.
When?
20th of November.
20th November. Okay, you're the winner. You're closest. So I decide to come to your house and I'm going to bring you a gift for your birthday. Have her make cake. So I come at your house and I take the gift. I say, happy birthday, and I just throw it on the table and I walk out. How would you feel about that? Would you feel happy? I mean, like, it depends on the gift. Okay. So what did I do? It's exactly what you wanted, but I put it in a baggie, or I put it in a little Rami Levy bag and just kind of tossed it on the table. Or I was anticipating my daughter's birthday. It's not for a bit, another couple months. All 3 daughters, actually. Anticipate the big day, her birthday. I know what she wants. I go out and I buy it early. I put it in a box. I wrap it. I put a bow. I put a little note with it, and I put it on her table. When she comes in the house, boom, there it is, and she's excited about it. What was the preparation? The exact gift, let's say, right? So I take the gift, I throw it in a Rami Levy bag and toss it on the table, or I did all this preparation, this anticipation. What's the difference? It's the same gift. The difference is my approach and my attitude, not only to the gift, but to the recipient. It says something to the recipient. If I care about buying the lulav and etrog at the last minute before Shkia, Erev Sukkot, because I couldn't get, because I have to have it, fine, for a bracha, I'm doing the mitzvah. Did I take it the next day, make a bracha? Yeah. Did I do a mitzvah? Yes, 100%. That was the outside of the mitzvah. But where's the flavor? Where's this saying something about the recipient? In quotes, the Hashem, who's the mitzvah, the one who gave the commandment to do this. What does it say about my relationship with Hashem? What does it say about my relationship to that mitzvah? Let's take a look. Zvizim, people who are, okay, I'll use the word zealous, full of alacrity. I don't even know what I'm saying when I said those words, that they rush to do the mitzvah. They're first ones to do the mitzvah. Just like we have to be very careful and aware to not fall into any trap of the Yetzer Hara and to stay away from something wrong, so he shouldn't rule over us. We also have to be the same approach. We have to be very careful, not get tripped up by doing the way to do the mitzvah. Just like the Yetzer Hara works to give us all kinds of trickery to get us to do the sin, the Yetzer Hara works 24/7. Don't do the mitzvah, do the Avera. That's its job. And it does it very well. Very, very well. If he's going to be loosened, meaning he's going to like be slaggard, whatever, and be lazy, he won't strengthen himself to run after the mitzvah, and to support them. He won't end up doing the mitzvah. In other words, when we think about the Yetzer Hara, we usually think in terms of the negative. The Yetzer Hara wants us to do an Avera, but we don't think of it necessarily in terms of it also doesn't want us to do the mitzvah. I'm sure it's happened. It's happened to me many times. You have an intention to do something, a particular mitzvah, and then for some reason your brain just gives you an excuse. Oh, someone else will do that, or I'll do it later, which is exactly why Pirkei Avot says, do I never say, when I have time, I'll learn. Shema lo tipaneh. Maybe you're not going to have that time, right? So we'll get into next week, Bezrat Hashem, about what is it the Yetzer Hara does, how we overcome it, etc. Okay? Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Be well, everybody.